Yeah, this car's been in our family for over 70 years. It's a 1940 Mercury. It's a model 99A, and according to what I find, there's only 600 of these built. It's never been damaged. It was repainted in the original black in 1960, and it's been in storage ever since. So it also has a really rare factory option. It has a Columbia 2-speed rear end, which gears it up 30%, so it'll cruise 80 if you're brave enough to go that fast. The brakes are Flintstone style, so it don't stop very good. And it still has old nylon tires on it, so I don't drive it very fast or very far. Anyway, it's got a 239 cubic inch flathead motor, which the car looks like a 40 Ford, but it's 4 inches wider and 9 inches longer than a 40 Ford, and it has 10 more horsepower. So the heater system is fairly unique. It looks like a turbo, only it's got a jacket that goes around the exhaust manifold and then blows into the cabin. So it just has heat and defroster, and it actually works really well. So the motor runs really good. It's never been touched, so everything is original on it. I pulled the generator off and put an alternator on it, just because those things are a source of problems. So anyway, that should last me forever. So it still has the original interior in it. Suicide doors. Yeah, everything is all original. All the gauges work. It still has a factory radio in it, but it doesn't work, so that's on my list of things to do. And it has a giant back seat in it. Lots of legroom. Spotlight, factory option. And it actually drives pretty well. It's real quiet. The windows roll up and down very good. The doors shut just like new. So it's a pretty good old car. Back in the day, it was really ahead of its time, but so it has factory air conditioning here, a vent that you open, which is actually pretty efficient. It blows a lot of air in there. Where I started with, I bought a Cushman motor scooter when I was, I think, 11 years old, maybe 10, and the rod hammered in it like crazy. So my uncle was kind of a jack of all trades mechanic, so we pulled it down and filed the rod cap and fixed it and reground the valves, and so that's kind of where I got my roots. And then I just OJT from there. I just started tearing cars apart, and I had a pretty good knowledge of mechanical ability by that time. And so my dad owned a wrecking yard, so when we was like 11 years old, I mean, if we got an old car that would run, I mean, we were in hog heaven. We lived out in the middle of Mojave Desert, so we'd go chasing jackrabbits and whatever, and just had a great time. So my dad drove when I was a little kid, he had a 40 Chevrolet, and I mean, we drove that thing 70 miles an hour everywhere. You just didn't know any difference. And I'm thinking back there was no safety equipment, and my dad built a little seat for me to sit on between me and Mom, or him and Mom. And I'm going, oh my gosh, if we'd have crashed, there was no padded dashes, no seat belts. I mean, but we lived through it, and so yeah, we learned from it. Yeah. My first car was a 1948 Chevrolet, and I didn't do much to that. But then I started with a 50 Chevrolet, and I hot rodded that out and put 3 carburetors and a full race cam and high compression pistons, and it ran really good. And that was about 1955 maybe, I had that. And then I evolved. I had a 56 Chevy that I drag raced for a number of years, and then I've had so many cars. To date, I've had like 76 old cars, hot rods that I've made through the years. I drag raced for a number of years. I had a Corvette that I drag raced, set several track records. Bought a new GTO in '67, drag raced that for a couple of years, set records all over the country with it. And so I learned it the hard way, on-the-job training. I've had to do everything, learn to do whatever. I do all my own wrenching and do all my own fabricating and welding and whatever needs to be done. Set up rear ends, rebuild transmissions, rebuild motors. Unlike today, there's not very many people that do that. They take it to Joe's Custom and and just pay the money and have it whatever needs to be done. But it's expensive, and so I came up the hard way with not much. But it's been good to me, and I can't say that I've made a lot of money doing it, but it's okay. It's the fun that we do it for, not the profit. So there's a couple cars I wished I'd really kept. Is my '57 Corvette and my '67 GTO. I wished I'd never sold those. So the GTO, I had that during the gas crunch in the early '70s, and I sold it and bought a Renault of all things. And that was the biggest mistake I made. So my wife and kids are still crying over me selling that car. So it just kind of evolved. It's always been, I don't golf, I don't enjoy chasing a ball that makes no sense to me. That I enjoy driving my old cars, and so that's what I've done. So I got a funny story about my '58 Impala. I took my daughter to school one day in it, and she goes, "Dad, don't pull up to school let me out before we get there, because this car is too old and ratty to drive to school." And so you talk to her now, she goes, "What was I thinking of?" She goes, "That car was so beautiful, and she goes, I would be the envy of everybody now." It's been a fun thing, met a lot of great people, and the meets are fun, and the people that you associate with are just great people, and everybody helps everybody else out. So it's great therapy, and I'm getting to the age now where maybe I'm in my twilight years, but I'm still at it. So I don't know how much longer I'll keep doing it, but probably for a while yet.